The Israelites Were White, Version 2 by TruthVids. 1. The origin and migrations of the European people. We Europeans are everywhere. We are on every continent and in every corner of the world. Wherever we've gone, we have thrived and built great Christian civilizations based on Yahweh's laws. However, we were not always spread across the world. At one time, we were within the bounds of Europe, and we originated from a mass of Germanic tribes who swarmed into Europe. Back then we had different names, our tribal names, such as Franks, Saxons, Angles, Goths, Vandals, and many more. So if we came from these Germanic tribes, then where did the Germanic tribes come from? Did they just magically appear out of thin air? Now on the other hand, most people these days have at least a basic, vague outline of the story within the Bible, how Yahweh made a covenant with Abraham, the creation of the 12 tribes of Israel, how Yahweh led them out of Egypt under Moses to invade the land of Canaan, but eventually they were deported by the Assyrians. From here on, all trace of the Israelites fade into history. So where did they go? Is that where the story ends? Well, not quite. In the 19th century, archaeologists began digging up and excavating the Middle East and uncovered many ancient tablets and inscriptions, and they even discovered Nineveh, the ancient capital city of the Assyrian Empire. Upon translating those tablets and inscriptions, it was discovered that the kings of Assyria recorded their conquests and boasted of invading the land of Israel and deporting hundreds of thousands of both Israel and Judah, but they didn't call them Israelites. Instead, the Assyrians called the Israelites Kimri or Bit Kimri, meaning people or house of Omri, and this is because around that time King Omri was the dynasty ruling over the northern kingdom of Israel, so they called the Israelites after their king. Now the King James Version, they translated the King Kimri to King Omri, and this is because in Hebrew the name Omri is spelt with the Chayin letter, the one that looks like an I, which can be a guttural C or G like sound, but alternatively a vowel like sound, and this is why most modern Bibles chose to translate the Chayin to an O to make it Omri, but the Assyrians instead went with a C or K like sound for Kimri. About 100 years later, the Assyrian Empire collapsed, and some of the Israelites immediately went on and invaded Anatolia and Greece. The Greeks used the name Kimmeroi from Kimri, which we anglicized to Cimmerians. Now the next empire to rise up in the east was the Babylonian Empire, and they called the Israelites Gimiri, so they preferred a G-like sound. And not long after, the Persian Empire rose up, and they had a new name altogether. They called the Israelites Sake or Sake Sune, meaning the sons of Sake. One historian, Sharon Turner, believed that that is the origin of the name Saxons, from that Saxony Persian name given to our ancestors long ago. Now even during the Persian period, the Israelites were migrating into Europe in larger and larger numbers, and they began using a new name, Scythians, for themselves, and the Greeks also had a new name for them, Galatahi. Now Scythians is derived from the Hebrew word Sukkoth, which means tent dwellers. As the historian Herodotus explains, at this time our ancestors had no permanent cities, but lived constantly on the move, with the women and children in wagons and the men on horseback with bows and arrows. As for the Greek name Galatahi, the ancient historian Homer mocked the Scythians, calling them Galactophagi, meaning milk-fed. It is likely that Galatahi originates from milk drinkers, as Gala in Greek means milk. Our ancestors survived on the meat and milk of their cattle. Eventually, by 390 BC, the Galatahi had invaded Italy and went on to sack Rome. The Romans shortened the name Galatahi to just Galli, which we anglicized to Gauls. The Roman historian Livy calls the Gauls at this time a strange race, new settlers, as the Romans had never before seen these people because they were newcomers to Europe. The Gauls pushed even further west into Europe, and some settled in what was already called Celtica, or France today, and mingled with the Celts. The land was renamed to Gaul. So now we get to the last name, German, Germanic, Germania. For this we can thank none other than Julius Caesar. When Caesar invaded Gaul, he distinguished between the Gauls in France, who had mingled with the Celts, and the Gauls still in the rest of Europe over the Danube River. He called them the Germans, meaning genuine, true, authentic, sincere, as he saw them as the pure Gauls. Now this is of course Caesar's perspective. In reality, they were all Israelites. We'll get to that later. Nevertheless, the name German was born. The famous historian Strabo states that these Germanic or Galatai people were from the Western Rhine, which would be Holland and the border of Switzerland today, all the way back to the Dnieper River by the Black Sea, which would be the Ukraine today, an enormous mass of people. And Pliny, a Roman historian, tells us that the name of Scythians has been changed to Germans because they, including the Cimmerians and Galatai, are all one and the same people. So we Europeans come from these Germanic tribes, and all of the Germanic tribes migrated to Europe from the Middle East, and that is why we are sometimes referred to as Indo-Europeans and also Caucasians, as many of our ancestors migrated over the Caucasus Mountains to enter Europe. Thus we can trace our lineage back in time and know with certainty that we are the Israelites, the descendants of Abraham, Isaac and Jacob. We are the people of the Bible. We are the inheritors of the biblical promises and prophecies, and there is no true Christianity without a true understanding of this ancient history. We are the children of God, and the Bible is our history and no one else's. Be sure to check out the website truthvids.net. Here you can find all the 100 proofs material